I want to bring back a term that you used several times, and that's wrestle with God. We've
Mm.
talked about this in a lot of different ways too, but kind of a theme around all of these different concepts and Christians exploring different alternative spiritual practices and vice versa, people who are already practicing a lot of alternative spiritual practices and consider themselves to be very spiritual, but maybe don't actively belong to a specific religion or are not, considering themselves Christian. I think both sides can deeply value from the work that you do, Janelle, and what you share, because you are able to bridge that gap and to show both sides of the coin, right, in a healthy, loving way. But underneath a lot of that is this concept of wrestling with God. There's a lot of people and a lot of Christians that will say, like, you are not to ever question or doubt God, and doing so is harmful to you and is harmful to your family, to your lineage, to your heritage, to your children. Like, it's harmful to question, and we're just meant to read the Bible, accept it word for word as it is, not try to dissect it, not try to like uncover things from it. And we're just to accept everything as it is.
Yeah.
There's this beautiful concept that you are talking about of wrestling. Tell me about that, and why is that maybe necessary or even good, or where does that come into play with all of these concepts, right? It's like I think that is a hard thing for people to grapple with, is like if they have any doubt or if they're exploring different avenues or even questioning their own faith after practicing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years plus. Why is wrestling with God an okay thing to do?
Yeah. Rachel, I love this question. And so there's so much to unpack here. I want to start with something that Benedict the 16th said. So again, we have to remember, anyone listening, we're coming from a Catholic perspective.
Yes.
Catholics are not biblical literalists. We are
Yes.
not fundamentalists. And actually, Benedict the 16th, back when he was still Joseph Ratzinger, said on the interpretation of the Bible, and I quote, "A fundamentalist interpretation of Scripture is intellectual suicide."
Mm. Say it
Okay.
again. So
Yeah.
everyone needs to hear
Words
that.
to live by. A fundamentalist or literal interpretation of Scripture is intellectual suicide.
Mm.
The Scriptures were not meant to be taken literally. That is not their intention. That's not their purpose. Why? And I've talked about this before. Language is an incredibly poor medium by which to communicate God,
Yes.
right? Language is always changing. The meanings of words are eternally changing over time, and language is not universally translatable,
Right.
right? And God is unchanging, and God reveals himself in various ways to every single one of us. God is universally translatable. Anyone can experience God,
Yeah.
right? And so it's idiotic, intellectual suicide, to say that words written by men perhaps in the first, second, third, fifth, 10th century BCE would be universally translatable and applicable to us now.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that they're universally not translatable, or nothing should be taken literally, right?
Right.
That is not what we're saying at all. However, what what the Catholic Church believes is that sacred scripture and sacred tradition are equally valuable and go hand in hand in the interpretation and communication of God to his people.
Mm.
So you need sacred scripture. And some verses are meant to be taken literally. I would say the majority of, the books of wisdom, for example, in the Old Testament, that is like lessons learned over thousands of years.
Right.
They're sayings, again, it's wisdom, right? That I think we probably should take most of that literally, right? The New Testament is, for the most part, historically accurate. And so we can take, the majority of the New Testament at face value, but we still have to apply this, what they call historical critical lens, right? Like, let's put it in context. Who was writing this? What did
Yeah.
they mean? What were they referring to? What were they alluding to? What were the kind of cultural, sociological practices of the time, with mores of the time? And so we need interpreters of the Bible. And, as Catholics, we're so blessed that we have the magisterium, right? And so we rely on the magisterium of the Catholic Church to interpret the Bible and to really inform us through biblical scholarship, through theological scholarship, what is the intention for the laity in this passage or that passage.